The courts have ordered the bank to pay back some of the money, but it's not even close to what Francisco had before. That might
What it is, guys? It's your boy BlastphamousHD, aka Tyrone Cobble, and we're here today with this late-breaking information. You'll never see someone make worse decisions than when they have a whole lot of money, but didn't have to work to get it. With that being said, you guys sent me a video called The Dumbest Lottery Winners of All Time. Let's do this.
There's only one way to win the lottery. It's pure luck. There are a lot of ways to lose everything you won. This is our supercut of the dumbest ways lottery winners went broke that we've covered over the years. Strap in, because it's going to be a wild ride filled with crazy stories. Number 36, Justin Ryder. Even little kids know that just because cartoon characters can jump off a roof without dying, that doesn't mean they should try it themselves. But Justin Ryder had made it into adulthood without realizing that fact. He'd become obsessed with the Austin Powers film Goldmember. He made it his life's goal to have a...
Do not tell me he jumped off this building and tried to use an attractive white woman to break his fall and ended up breaking his own fall.
Gold member of his own. And when he amazingly won $600,000, he saw it as an opportunity to finally gold plate his junk. But he probably should have used real gold. I guess it was just the shiny color he was after, because he opted for lead-based paint. He happily dipped his nether regions into it and continued with his life. But when something didn't feel right, he went on another shopping trip. And this time, he got his hands on some genuine gold-infused paint. He could have taken the first layer of paint off, but I guess he had something important to do because he just painted over it with this new real gold paint. It didn't take long before Justin was found dead. But what happened? It turned out the cause of death was lead poisoning from the first paint he covered his family jewels in. I doubt that's what he planned, but at least he left this world as shiny as he always wanted to be. Weird way to lose it all, right? The next person on our list sounds like she was competing for weird points. Number 35, Alicia Battle. Alicia Battle always had a talent for getting on the wrong side of the law. She'd already been arrested for keying cars, credit card fraud, and even assault. But in 2003, she tried her luck at her riskiest crime yet, when it was announced that the lucky Mega Millions ticket holder had won a $162 million jackpot. Alicia saw a chance to get rich. She knew she'd purchased a losing ticket from the same store that sold the winning ticket. When no winners came forward to claim their prize, Alicia stepped forward to tell the world she'd won. But she said she tragically lost her ticket. People from all over joined in to try to help her while she filed a police report on it. Big mistake. The real winners were simply getting financial advice before coming forward to claim their prize. They finally arrived to claim their prize, unknowingly exposing Alicia's lie at the same time. Instead of being a multi-millionaire, all Alicia got was another brush with the law for submitting a fake police report. How did she think she was going to get away with that? The same question applies to the next person on this list. Number 34, Joe Antonio Cuetak. Joe didn't win the biggest lottery jackpot ever, but a $750,000 Georgia lottery prize is still pretty amazing. That kind of cash can go a long way if you're an illegal immigrant like Joe. Wait, what? If you're wondering how illegal immigrants can claim lottery prizes, there's a simple answer. They can't. So it's pretty stupid to play the lottery in the first place. But I guess Joe thought he had it figured out. He just asked his boss to collect the money for him. However, Joe hadn't banked on his boss just taking the money for himself. But there's not much you can do about that if you've won money illegally in a country you're not supposed to be in. Joe didn't see it that way. He got so mad, he decided to sue his boss. And that was his last huge mistake. Obviously, his illegal status was discovered thanks to the trial. And he wasn't just deported. He ended up in jail because he'd also taken the time to threaten to kill his boss's family after he took the money. I know, it's almost impressive how many mistakes Joe made. Sure.
It's just as impressive the fact that he did not murder his boss's family when he did not give him his money.
Some people get really lucky, but nobody's ever got that lucky, except maybe for number 33, Evelyn Basore. Very few people are lucky enough to win the lottery not once, but twice. That's exactly what happened to Evelyn Basore. Her first win in 1985 was the biggest jackpot with a huge total of $3.9 million. But the second jackpot sure wasn't small either. Just 4 months later, she had another $1.4 million jackpot to her name. That's the kind of money that can keep you in luxury for the rest of your life. But even though Evelyn was clearly super lucky, she didn't have the smarts to go with it. She gave away loads of her cash. But even worse, she spent most of the rest on gambling. I guess she figured gambling on the lottery had paid off so well that it was her best bet to get more cash. But we could have told her she'd never get that lucky again. She's broke, working 2 jobs to pay for food, and living in a trailer park. She still plays the lottery though. Who knows? Maybe she's 3rd time lucky. There's one mistake that Evelyn didn't make. Her ticket purchases were all legit. That's not true of our next winner. Number 32, Christina Goodenow. Christina Goodenow was lucky enough to win $1 million on an Oregon lottery scratch-off ticket. Amazing, right? It would have been amazing. But in an incredible act of stupidity, she decided it was fine to buy the ticket with a credit card belonging to her boyfriend's dead mom. Obviously, buying lottery tickets with stolen credit cards is illegal. The same way buying anything with a stolen credit card is illegal. But that wasn't Christina's only mistake. Obviously, the moment she received the cash, the feds realized they should probably look into why this lottery ticket was apparently bought by a dead woman. And when they found Christina, they hit their own kind of jackpot. They found a whole collection of crimes she was committing. She was charged with theft, forgery, identity theft, computer fraud, and parole violation. They even found a nice quantity of meth in her possession as the cherry on top of her crimes. I guess she deserved it all if she wasn't even smart enough to hide the drugs when the feds came knocking. It's almost alright to do something that crazy when you're only looking out for yourself, but the next person on our list had kids to look after. Number 31, Gerald Muswagon. Canadian Gerald Muswagon bought a $2 lotto ticket that made him an instant millionaire in 2011. He won a $10 million jackpot but blew through it in just a few short years. He bought a house that doubled as a nightly party spot, hosting his ever-growing legion of hangers-on. He also blew the cash on cars, partying, and gifts, while racking up a string of legal entanglements. By the end, he was doing manual labor on a farm to support his girlfriend and 6 young children. 7 years after his big win, he hung himself in his parents' garage. There are a lot of tragic lottery winners out there. You can blame it on the lottery curse. It got to the next person on our list too. Number 30, Amanda Clayton. Amanda Clayton was going through a pretty rough time in her life. She was only in her early 20s, and she was forced to claim state welfare and use food stamps to be able to eat. It wasn't looking good until something amazing happened. She won $1 million on the Michigan Lottery's Make Me Rich game. That's more than enough money to turn her life around completely. But instead, she chose to do something really stupid. A local news outlet noticed she was still claiming welfare benefits and food stamps a couple years after winning. She hadn't gone broke or anything. She just wanted to have her cake and eat it too. It wasn't long before she was losing a case in court. She got 9 months probation and a fine for her crimes. Sadly, she was found dead of a drug overdose a year later. It's a sad ending, but the next person on our list proves many winners create their own problems. Number 29, Tonda Lynn Dickerson. This story started in a Waffle House. The group of waitresses who worked there had become pretty close over the years. One of their regular customers started tipping them with lottery tickets. On one condition, they'd split the prize money if they won, and also buy him a new truck. They never thought they'd win, but they were wrong. One of the waitresses checked her ticket the next day and realized it was worth $10 million. There was just one problem. Tonda was the holder of the winning ticket, and she decided she didn't want to share. Obviously, the other waitresses were pretty unhappy about that. Not only had they lost out on all their money, but they'd also been betrayed by someone they thought was their friend. So, they got together and sued Tonda. Unfortunately, they lost the case, and Tonda got away with all the cash. By then, the customer who bought the ticket heard what she'd done. He couldn't believe she'd treat her friends that way and get away with it, so he tried to get some justice for the waitresses. He sued Tonda, saying the waitress had promised to buy him a new truck if they'd won. The case went all the way to Supreme Court, but Tonda eventually won again. She'd nearly got away with it, but then she slipped up. Tonda decided to protect her money by opening a corporation. That would have been safe, except then she gifted shares of the corporation to her family. That was a big mistake, because she didn't realize those shares qualified for gift tax. The IRS came after her when they'd realized the tax hadn't been paid. and she was forced to hand over $1 million. So none of her friends got to share the money, but at least she had to pay something. At least Tana tried to hang on to her money. That's the only good thing you can say about her. The next person on our list had a different idea. Number 28, Sharon Tirabassi. Sharon Tirabassi won $10.5 million in a Lotto Super 7 jackpot in Canada in 2004. Excessive spending and giving her life an over-the-top makeover in the years after she won drained the money quickly. Assuming the money was bottomless, the vacations, cars, houses, and handouts piled up until there was nothing left. By 2013, she was riding a bus to the part-time job she worked to support her children because all her winnings were gone by then. You'd think, as a mom, she would have had better priorities. Think that's a weird way for a parent to behave? Just wait until you hear about the next winners on this list. Number 27. Laura and Roger Griffiths. The marriage of Laura and Roger Griffiths ended in divorce less than a decade after the British couple won a $2.19 million lottery jackpot. Roger pursued his rock star dreams by spending large sums of money to have his band release an album. Laura became familiar with the high life after the couple purchased exotic cars, a $1 million home, designer clothes, and accessories, and a costly private school for their daughter. They invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in opening a salon, where Laura was later forced to work as an employee just to make ends meet. In the end, the couple had less than $10 in a shattered relationship. When we said you gotta follow your dreams, that's not what we meant. The winner coming up already had his dreams come true, and he still blew it. Number 26, Daniel Carley. Canadian Daniel Carley got the surprise of a lifetime one day when he scratched off his Ontario lottery ticket and realized he'd actually won. And it wasn't just a little bit either. His jackpot was 5 million Canadian dollars, or about 4.4 million in US money. It's gotta feel incredible. His life was pretty much perfect now. He was engaged to the mother of his unborn child, surrounded by friends and family, and in the prime of his life. That night, he went over to the bar he co-owned with his dad to celebrate his win with friends. There's no better way to celebrate than with a huge party, but even though the night ended, the party didn't stop for Daniel. He kept it going for a decade. He estimates he spent a mind-blowing $1 million on drugs over the next few years. When he ran out of cash, he again figured drugs were the answer. So he started trafficking narcotics. He was eventually caught and spent a few years in prison for it. But on the bright side, it did help him get off the cocktail of drugs he was on. You know things have gone wrong when prison time turns out to be a good thing. Still, it could have been worse. Just ask the next winner. Number 25. Alex Toth. Alex Toth won $13 million in the Florida lottery in 1990. He lived well for a few years, then went broke by spending all the money and not investing correctly. After he went broke, he split up with his wife. He got in trouble for filing false tax returns and spent some time in a mental institution. He died penniless at age 60 in 2008. Some people learn the hard way that money's not so easy to manage. The next winner on our list summed that up nicely. Number 24, Kenproxmire. You know how people always say you should choose annuity payments to avoid going broke? It doesn't always help. Kenproxmire won his $1 million jackpot thanks to the Michigan State Lottery, and that really was a lot of cash back in 1977. He chose the annuity option, which guaranteed him $50,000 per year for 14 years. That was a lot of cash back then, but not quite as much as Ken thought it was. He started spending like it was going out of style. He bought houses, businesses, cars, and he was even picking up the tab whenever he went out with friends. But it didn't take long for his investments to start collapsing. Soon, his pool parlor was $60,000 in debt, which makes that $50,000 annual payout look like small change. His advice to future lottery winners? Crawl into a hole and pull the top in. I don't think that's what I wanted to hear. If full-grown adults can ruin their chances like that, what happens when a teenager wins the lottery? Let's ask number 23. Collie Rogers. Back in 2003, Collie Rogers was living in a foster care and working at a supermarket. Then, she suddenly made headlines when she became the world's youngest ever lottery winner. She was only 16 at the time, but she now had an incredible $2.3 million in the bank. The British teen totally changed her life with that money. Sadly, not in a good way. She started spending it on crazy stuff, with no role models to help her make good decisions. She also developed a drug habit and her strange lifestyle meant she became depressed. That led her to spend tons of cash on plastic surgery in the hopes of feeling a little better about herself, but it didn't help. She said the money made her feel like nobody cared about her because she would buy drinks for people in bars who were only talking to her so they can get a story they can sell to the tabloids. She lost every cent she'd won in the end, and now campaigns to try to change the minimum age for lottery players. Obviously, Callie isn't the most famous teenage lottery winner. That prize goes to number 22, Michael Carroll. At the tender age of just 19, British teen Michael Carroll won the lottery. He collected the $14 million with a police ankle bracelet still around his leg. That probably gives you a good idea of what happened next. He spent wildly, buying a mansion he didn't like and spending even more on fixing it up. He built a demolition derby racetrack in the back garden where he'd destroy luxury cars. He even started the day with narcotics and vodka for breakfast. And he spent millions on sex parties in the mansion, even though he had a wife and child. Soon, his family and friends had left him because he was behaving so badly.
If you having sex parties, what's the point of having the wife?
Luckily for him, when he went broke, his wife decided to take pity on him, and she came back, considering he said he'd be dead by now if he still had the money. Do you think this is just bad luck? Well, the next person won on Friday the 13th, so he might have the answer. Number 21, Lou Eisenberg. Lou Eisenberg became New York's luckiest man when he landed the $5 million jackpot back in 1981. At the time, it was the largest lottery payout ever in the state of New York. His life should have been perfect after that, but maybe winning on Friday the 13th cursed his new fortune because it definitely didn't help out much. Instead of making clever investments or following a dream, Lou gambled away most of his cash. The rest went to paying off his ex-wives, and that was all that Lou's fortune gave him. Last anyone checked, he was living in a mobile home. Maybe it wasn't the curse of Friday the 13th that got to him. It might just be old-fashioned stupidity. Okay, so maybe it's not bad luck. After all, some people can lose it all and still come back. Like number 20, Curtis Sharp. Curtis Sharp won $5 million in the New York lottery in 1982. Unfortunately, his story was one of the rags to riches and back again. From trips to the casino, reckless spending on sports cars, and lavishing gifts on friends and relatives, Curtis saw his fortune disappear. Fast forward to today, Curtis is a minister in Tennessee. According to him, other winners should walk away and clear their heads before spending any of their winnings. That's a pretty positive story, considering he lost his winnings. So, we've made sure the next story on our list is one of the worst. Number 19, William Post. William Bud Post III won $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery in 1988. He thought his problems were solved, but it wasn't long before he'd blown it. Even though William didn't have a pilot's license, he decided to purchase a plane. He tried to help his siblings start a restaurant and a used car business. His former girlfriend, who was also his landlady, sued him for a third of his winnings. He didn't pay her, so a judge froze his assets. The relationships with his family members also went sour. William even claims one of his brothers tried to hire an assassin to kill him. It doesn't get much worse than that. One day, a repo man tried to take William's car away. Stupidly, when William saw him, he opened fire. You won't be surprised to hear he ended up in jail for it. In the end, he lived off Social Security disability payments until he died at age 66. Some people just don't know how to grab an opportunity. Just ask number 18, John Roberts. John Roberts was living in government housing in Scotland in 1998 when he suddenly won a huge jackpot. He suddenly had 3.1 million British pounds in the bank, or about $5.1 million. That's an incredible amount of money for anyone, but it's even more if you've never had any money. Just imagine what he could have done with it. And when I say imagine, I mean it, because he didn't do anything except spend it all. He blew his fortune on supercars and giant mansions. After a couple people he thought were his friends stole his cash by lying about investments, he had nothing left. It only took him 3 years before he was living in an old mobile home. Sure, his friends took off with the last of his cash, but he didn't really try to do anything good with it. The next person kinda did, just in the dumbest way possible. Number 17, Lisa Arcand. Lisa was the winner of a $1 million lottery prize in Massachusetts in 2004. She, like previous winners, purchased a home and took multiple vacations. She threw an extravagant dinner for 20 of her friends and family, ordering multiple bottles of wine for $200 each. She put her son in a fancy school and bought expensive furniture for her home. Lisa decided to open a restaurant as a source of income after realizing that $1 million didn't go very far after taxes. Lisa had no prior restaurant or financial management experience. Sadly, the restaurant didn't perform well, and she was forced to close it. Lisa's money was gone by 2007, barely 3 years after she won the lottery. They say stick to what you know, and Lisa proves that's true. The next person on the list stuck to her ideas a little too much, though. Number 16. Janet Lee. South Korean immigrant Janet Lee won $18 million in the Illinois lottery in 1993. 8 years later, when she filed for bankruptcy, she had less than $700 in the bank and $2.5 million in debt. Her donations were well-intentioned, but she simply gave too much. She donated considerable sums to educational, political, and social causes. But it wasn't just donations to charity that ate through her winnings, although her gambling habit reportedly cost her more than $300,000 per year. Still, she did more on charitable and political donations. Her generosity included $1 million for Washington University to build a new library. In 2001, her fortune had evaporated, but at least some other people benefited from it. It's good to be generous, but maybe not that much. The next winner was generous too, except it was a total accident. Number 15. John McGuinness. John McGuinness learned the hard way that following your heart isn't always the best idea. The UK man won a huge UK National Lottery jackpot in 1997, taking home 10 million British pounds, or $16.3 million. And he knew exactly what he wanted to do with that cash. He quit his job as a hospital porter and bought his favorite football club for $4.9 million. Unfortunately, he didn't know that buying the club meant he'd be responsible for all their debts, and they sure owed a lot of cash. By 2009, just 12 years later, the club's debts had wiped out his winnings, and he was scraping coins together to buy groceries. If you learned anything from that story, it's that you should always do your research. Another lesson for lottery winners is to never trust anyone. Just ask number 14, Marva Wilson. Marva Wilson won $2 million in the Missouri lottery in 2012. It's not easy to manage that kind of money. Luckily, Freya Pearson, a good friend, agreed to help Marva manage her money and do all her taxes. But she was lying. She duped Marva into signing over $400,000 of her winnings and depositing them into a bank account set up by Pearson, as well as giving her access to Wilson's other bank account. Pearson went on a spending binge, traveling, gambling, and purchasing cars and an apartment with Marva's money. Thankfully, she was eventually caught. Pearson was convicted and given a 5-year sentence on account of fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering, but it was too late to recover the funds. Pearson had squandered all of Wilson's money in less than 2 years. It's always sad when a lottery winner has their cash stolen, but what about when lottery winners are stealing cash from others? Number 13. James Hayes. James Hayes worked as an overnight security guard in 1998 when he won $19 million playing California's Super Lotto game. But he quickly went from winner to loser. His ex-wife reportedly took half the jackpot money, and James developed a heroin habit, costing him $1,000 a week. He then resorted to robbing banks to keep up his lifestyle. The FBI nicknamed him the PT Cruiser Bandit and the Seasoned Bandit because of his car and gray hair. In 2018, James pleaded guilty to bank robbery and was sentenced to 33 months in prison. Of course, by that time, there was not $1 left of his winnings. After you hear the next story on our list, you're gonna feel like the banks totally deserved what James did, even if, legally, we disagree with that idea. Number 12. Francisco Guerrero. You've got to be really careful who you trust when winning a big jackpot. Francisco Guerrero was a bricklayer in Spain. He didn't have much money, but he was happy. And he even worked hard enough to buy a few properties. But he became a multi-millionaire overnight when he won the equivalent of $8.6 million. He'd never seen that much money in his life, so instead of trying to work out what to do with it, He took it to the bank. He took the bank's advice and put 40% of the money into savings for his 4 children, and the rest was invested. The bank told him his money would be safe, and the investment carried no risks, but would earn him 17% every year.
Oh, that
sounds good, right? Francisco never touched a cent of his new fortune and chose to keep working instead. He didn't think about the money again until he injured his knee. He went to the bank to withdraw a small sum for the surgery he needed, but they told him there was no money in his account. The bank had lost every single dollar Francisco won on the terrible investment they recommended. But it was even worse than he thought. The investment had racked up an amazing amount of debt. Not only had he lost his winnings, but he now owed so much money, but he'd also lost the properties he bought with his hard-earned cash. The courts have ordered the bank to pay back some of the money, but it's not even close to what Francisco had before. That might be the most tragic story of any lottery winner ever. It might even be more tragic than murder, but we'll let you decide. Number 11. Joseph and E.B. Ronicaioli. Canadian residents Joseph and E.B. Ronicaioli were already pretty wealthy when E.B. won $5 million in a 1991 lottery. They were known as a happy elderly couple to their neighbors. However, their supposed comfortable lifestyle changed when Joseph discovered E.B. had spent all of their life savings due to her addictions to alcohol and gambling. If that wasn't bad enough, she refused to share her lottery winnings with him. But he discovered she gave away the $5 million to a secret son she had with another man before marrying Joseph. A few short years later, E.B. was found unconscious in her home. An autopsy showed that she had been poisoned. Joseph, who was a doctor, claimed he was checking her blood due to her poor health, but prosecutors saw through his lies and sentenced him to 7 years. It's a pretty tragic ending to what could have been a great life. That could have almost been a Netflix show with all those twists and turns. But the next winner on our list wasn't far off. Number 10. David Lee Edwards. 5 years after David Lee Edwards, a resident of Kentucky, won a jackpot, he was penniless and had to live in a storage shed with his wife. He married a woman 19 years younger than he was. The couple squandered the fortune on luxury items. They bought dozens of high-end cars, a big mansion, and a plane. In the first 3 months, they had blown through $3 million. By the end of the first year, they had burned more than $12 million. The couple later spiraled into drug addiction. In just 12 years after hitting the jackpot that changed their lives, their house was lost to foreclosure. David died in 2013, completely broke at age 58 in a hospice care facility. A few years later, his wife was arrested for stabbing a boyfriend. It's the perfect example of the lottery curse. That's sadly a familiar story with lottery winners. The next winner on our list didn't go near drugs, but still got himself on the wrong side of the law. Number 9. Lawrence Candish. Lawrence Candish didn't just blow through his millions. He actually got himself in trouble with the law in a different country, too. He won a huge UK National Lottery jackpot back in 1997. And I mean huge. He was worth about $9 million. That's a lot of money to burn. But Lawrence had a talent for losing money. He started by spending it on sports cars and houses for himself and his friends. Then, he moved to Spain and put more of his cash into some dodgy investments. But that wasn't his biggest mistake. While living it up in Spain, he was getting into trouble in a country he wasn't even in by continuing to collect social benefits from the UK. In case you don't know, those benefits are available to people without a job or money to make sure they can still eat. They definitely aren't meant to be collected by multi-millionaires. Lawrence was eventually caught and received a suspended sentence for benefits fraud. At least he deserved what he got. The next winner on our list sure didn't. Number 8. Aruj Khan. Aruj Khan founded a dry cleaning business in Chicago after immigrating to the United States from India in 1989. He worked hard to create a good life for his family. Years later, he bought a lottery ticket and was shocked to discover he'd won $1 million. He chose the lump sum, which came to $424,000 after taxes. He told the world he wanted to use it to expand his business so his kids would have something big to inherit. However, he never saw a dime. He died before he could collect his check. His brother was the first to know after he got a mysterious call that Arouge was having a heart attack. His assets became embroiled in a battle between his wife and stepdaughter. His brother convinced the police his brother had been murdered for his lottery money. And sure enough, an autopsy showed evidence of the deadly substance cyanide in his blood. Arouge's death was declared a murder, but police still haven't caught his killer. It wasn't even a giant Powerball ticket. The next person on our list will tell you $500,000 isn't as much as you think. Number 7. Peter Kyle. Former soldier Peter Kyle became one of the biggest jackpot winners the UK had ever seen back in 2005. He'd played the same numbers he'd been choosing for years and was the only winner of a jackpot worth $9.8 million. And if that wasn't enough, he went out to play bingo with his friends to celebrate and won an extra 500 British pounds as a bonus. But just 3 years later, he was living off benefits and staying in a room for $18 per night. So what happened to the millions? There's a simple answer. He spent it. Yes, all of it. A fishing boat kicked off the spending spree, but soon there were luxury cars and 5-bedroom mansions being added to his expenses. He was spending a whopping $5,500 per day. After that, it only took 1 or 2 bad investments to end his life as a rich person. When he won, he said in an interview, "Everything I see, I can afford." Looks like he was wrong. The next person on our list won 3 times as much as Peter, so did his money go any further? Number 6. Billy Bob Harrell Jr. Billy Bob Harrell Jr. is a well-known victim of the lottery curse. He hit the Texas lottery jackpot in 1997, but burned through his $31 million in just 2 years. The profoundly religious family donated heavily to their church and individual congregation members, but his expenses and spending were not all donations. He and his wife bought a couple of houses and expensive cars for themselves and their family members. They paid for costly trips to Hawaii and lived the most luxurious lifestyle possible. With his excessive spending, money quickly dried up. Soon after the money was gone, Billy's marriage fell apart. The divorce was too much for Billy to handle, and only 2 years after winning more than $31 million, his son found him dead. Tragically, he had taken his own life. Billy's story is surprising because his life seems so perfect, but the next person on our list was on the wrong path from the start. Number 5. Lee Ryan. Loads of lottery winners end up in trouble with the law eventually, but this winner was facing a prison sentence before he won. Lee Ryan was awaiting trial for selling stolen cars in London when he found out he'd won £6.5 million, or about $7.8 million, but he couldn't enjoy it because he had to spend the next 18 months in prison. When he got out, I guess he figured life was for living because he went nuts with his new fortune. Obviously, he loved cars, but he should have been careful because they'd already landed him in prison. His first purchases were a Bentley, a BMW, a Porsche, and a Ferrari. Then, he needed a mansion to keep them in, so he bought a house worth $1.2 million. And pretty soon, he also had 2 Ducatis, a $150,000 private plane, and a $280,000 helicopter. You can see where this is going. He then split up with his girlfriend and moved to Kyrgyzstan with a different girl. It didn't last long. He lost his millions on a fish farm when he got on the wrong side of the mafia and had to come back to London with only a sleeping bag. He spent 2 years sleeping on the streets, but these days he's working as a cameraman and seems to be doing all right. But he's sure not a millionaire anymore. In a way, that story somehow ended better than it started. We can't say the same about our next winner. Number 4. Willie Hurt. Willie Hurt was a happily married family man who was well known in his neighborhood before he won the lottery. In 1989, Hurt won the $3.1 million Michigan Super Lotto jackpot. This was during the height of the crack epidemic, and Hurt was deeply tangled in the mayhem. His winnings were used to fund a raging crack drug addiction. Soon after his win, Hurt divorced his wife, lost custody of his children, and lost his fortune. He went on a multi-day drug and alcohol frenzy with a woman who was found dead. He was charged with her murder although it was likely the result of a drug overdose. Hurt's attorney claimed the money was spent on his rocky divorce and crack addiction. By 1991, just 2 years after winning, the $3.1 million was nothing more than a blurred memory. Sadly, broken families are common among lottery winners. Just ask number 3, Keith Go. Keith Go from England is another lottery winner who claimed his new fortune ruined his life. He was a happily married 58-year-old baker at the time of his win. His UK National Lottery jackpot was a rollover from the previous draw and just as big as you'd expect, £9 million, or about $17.3 million. Suddenly, he went from baking to driving fast cars, betting huge sums on racehorses, and spending his time in a private executive box at Aston Villa Football Club. But it wasn't all the spending that really got to him. It was the drinking. Soon, his alcohol problem got so bad that he and his wife split up. He said it broke his heart because they were so in love before he won. All they wanted to do was retire together. 5 years after his big win, the stress of being broke and losing his wife got to him, and he sadly died of a heart attack. You're probably wondering if things go differently for lottery winners who are already wealthy. They know how to handle that kind of cash, right? Let's ask number 2, Jack Whitaker. Andrew Jack Whitaker, unlike most of the winners, was already wealthy. His company was making contracts worth about $15 million a year. On Christmas morning in 2002, he won the largest jackpot ever awarded to a single Powerball ticket. It was a whopping $319.9 million. He chose the lump sum, which left him $113 million after taxes. However, Jack Whitaker's lottery winnings changed him more than the money he had earned through hard work. He gave some to good causes, like $15 million to build churches in West Virginia. Jack also set up a charitable foundation and even bought a new house for the woman who sold him the ticket. And he threw in a new car and gave her some extra cash too. Despite his good deeds, the lottery curse hit him. His company was hit with frivolous lawsuits from people who wanted to get their hands on some of the jackpot money, costing him millions.
Oh, frivolous lawsuits, allegations. I've had a couple of those.
Started drinking hard and getting into fights. If this wasn't enough, his granddaughter, Brandy, got involved with the wrong people and died at a young age, a year after her boyfriend died from an overdose. The death had devastating consequences for his family. Andrew's daughter, Brandy's mother, was found dead 7 years after the jackpot was won. His wife filed for divorce, and soon, Andrew had lost his family and all the money he had won. The last person on our list loved something too. He loved his cars, but they got him into serious trouble. Number 1, Ryan McGee. Ryan McGee from Ireland was once on the UK's rich list when he won a huge jackpot worth $12.7 million. His first purchase was a red Ferrari, followed by a luxury mansion, but it all went downhill when he crashed his Ferrari. When investigators discovered he was driving without insurance, his license was suspended. His car wasn't the only thing crashing. His business and marriage were joining in. When he was caught driving on a suspended license the next time, he was behind the wheel of a Ford Focus. And this time, he had to claim legal aid from the government to help him through the court case. It was discovered that he'd already put his luxury mansion up for sale and was flat broke. So now you know all the dumbest things lottery winners have done. But what about the smartest? Check out this list of all the creative ways lottery winners held onto their cash and even got more rich.
With that being said, the moral of today's video is, no matter how much money you win, never give all of it to someone else to hold it for you, because they're probably not trying to just hold it for you. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to comment, like, and/or subscribe. Twist.